When working through these next expressions, we want to remember our order of operations. One way to remember our order of operations is through the word Pemdas. So P-E-M-D-A-S, which stands for parentheses, exponents, multiply or divide, and then add and subtract. It's going to be the order we're going to be doing our order of operations. So for our first expression, we have 8 plus 4 minus 3. So we go right away to our add and our subtract, so we don't have any parentheses, exponents, or multiplying and dividing. So we can go ahead and start with 8 plus 4 to give us 12. And we want to subtract 3. So 12 minus 3 will give us 9. And for the second one, same thing. We don't have any parentheses. We don't have any exponents. I don't see any multiplication or division, so all we have to do is subtract and add. So we'll do 38 minus 19, which will give us 19. We still have to do the 12. So 19 plus 12 will give us 31. Move on to the next one. For number 3, it's 7 plus 9 times, in parentheses, 3 plus 8. So for here, it's really important that we remember our Pemdas, because we see that we have parentheses. In parentheses, we have 3 plus 8, so that tells us we have to do the 3 plus 8 first, because our order of operations, parentheses is the very first step. So we're going to take our 3 plus 8, and that'll give us 11. So what I'm going to do is bring down the rest of my expression just so I know what I have left. And then the next part of our Pemdas, or order of operations, we don't have any exponents, but we do have multiplication. So we're going to go ahead and do the multiplication step of this expression next, which would be the 9 times 11, which will give us 99. Bring down the rest of my expression. And we're going to take our 7 plus 99 to get 106. So our answer to the expression will be 106. Again, I'm following through my Pemdas, or my order of operations. So for number 4, I'm going to go through and I'm going to look, do I have any parentheses? Nope, I don't have any parentheses. Do I have any exponents? And yep, I do have some exponents here. 2 to the 3rd power, so I'm going to go ahead and figure what that is. Again, remember, when I have 2 to the 3rd power, that means I'm taking 2 and multiplying it by itself 3 times. So it'll be like 2 times 2 times 2 to give me 8. Bring down the rest of my expression. The next step of Pemdas, we already did parentheses. There weren't any of those. We just did our exponents. And next is multiply and divide. We don't have any multiplication, but we do have division. So we're going to take our 8 and divide that by 4, which will give us 2. Bring down the rest of my expression. Next part would be addition and subtraction. We don't have any addition, but we do have subtraction. So we're going to take 15 minus 2 to give us 13. All right, for number 5, again, we'll go through the Pemdas order of operations. I'm going to look to see first if I have any parentheses, and I do at the very end of our expression. So we're going to do this part first, right here. So our 2 plus 14 will give us 16. Bring down the rest of my expression so I know what I'm working with. The next part of our Pemdas is exponents. I don't see any exponents in this expression, so we can skip that part. Next would be multiply and divide, and we do have multiplication, so we'll go ahead. We have multiplication and division. We want to do that from left to right, just like reading a book. So we'll do our division first, which is our 55 divided by 11. That'll give us 5. Bring down the rest of my expression. We still have our multiplication in there, so let's go ahead and do that. So our 7 times 16 gives us 112. Bring down the rest of our expression. It's 112 plus 5 will give us 117. All right, on to number 6. Again, work through our order of operations, so our Pemdas. Let's look and see if we have any parentheses, and I'm not seeing any parentheses in our expression, so we can skip the P. Next would be E in Pemdas, which is exponents, and I do see one exponent. We have 5 to the 3rd power, so we'll go ahead and do that. So that would look like 5 times 5 times 5. Which will be 125. Bring down the rest of my expression so I know what I'm working with. We know we don't have parentheses. We just did our exponents. Next would be multiply and divide from left to right. I don't see any multiplication, so we want to do our division, which is our 12 divided by 3. So we'll go ahead and do that. Which will be 4. Bring down the rest of my expression. That leaves us with 125 minus 4, and the last step would be addition and subtraction from left to right. Don't have any addition, so we'll just do our subtraction. So 125 minus 4 gives us 121 for our answer. For number 7, again, we'll go through our process of operations. Let's look to see if we have any parentheses. And I do see our parentheses right here. But within our parentheses, we also have an exponent and subtraction. So what we're going to do first is we want to solve our exponent within the parentheses so we can get rid of that crazy looking number in there. So 2 to the 4th is 16. Minus 3, still in parentheses. Bring down my equation. We still want to figure out what's within our parentheses here. So we have 16 minus 3. Gives us 13. Again, carry down the rest of my equation or our expression so we know what we're working with. So we got down our parentheses. We already did all of our exponents because our exponent was within our parenthesis. Next, we want to do multiply and divide from left to right. I don't see any division, but we do have multiplication right here. So 8 times 13 gives us 104. Bring down the rest of my expression. And 104 plus 8 will give me 112 for our answer. Finally, the last one for this first page, go through our Pemdas. So the first step is parentheses. Let's look and see if we have any of those, and we do. 20 minus 8 will give us 12. Bring down the rest of our expression. Next step in Pemdas would be our exponents. We have that in this equation as well. When I plug that into my calculator, I get 64, which is 4 to the 3rd power. So we did our parentheses. We did our exponents. The next step would be to multiply and divide from left to right. So when looking at our expression from left to right, we first have multiply. So we have our 64 times 12. So we'll go ahead and calculate that. That'll give us 768. Bring down the rest of my expression. We still have a division in our expression, so let's go ahead and do that right here. So do 768 divided by 2. Leaves us with 384, bringing down the rest of my expression again. Then the last step of our Pemdas or order of operations is adding and subtracting from left to right. I don't see any subtraction, so we're going to go ahead and do addition from left to right. So 9 plus 384 gives us 393 plus 6. The answer would be 399. Now for this one, we don't have to worry about doing numbers 9 and 10. We haven't quite covered our word problems with our Pemdas or order of operations yet, so all you have to do is 1 through 8. Now for page 2, same thing, we're going to find the value of each expression, so we're going to do our order of operations. At the top of my page, I'm going to write down my Pemdas again so I remember what the order of my operations is. Again, that's parentheses, exponents, multiply and divide from left to right, and then add and subtract from left to right. So for 18, I'm going to look at it, see what my order is. I'm going to look at first to see if I have any parentheses. I'm not seeing any. I'm going to move on to exponents. Again, I don't see any exponents in our expression. Next step would be multiply and divide from left to right. I don't see any multiplication or division. And our last step would be adding or subtracting from left to right, and I do see both of those. So we're going to go ahead and add or subtract from left to right. First part would be to subtract. So we have 22 minus 17, which gives us 5. Bring down the rest of my expression. And 5 plus 8 will give us 13. For 19, again, we go through our operation steps. First step would be the P, or our parentheses. We do have parentheses in this expression, so that's going to be our first step. So 9 plus 2 is in our parentheses, which gives us 11. I'm going to bring down the rest of my expression so I know what I'm working with. Next step in our Pemdas would be exponents, but we don't have any exponents, so we can skip that step. Then it would be M and D, which is multiply and divide from left to right. We do have multiplication, so that'll be our next step. So 11 times 6 will give us 66. I'm going to bring down the rest of my expression so I know what I'm working with. And that brings me to my last step of the add and subtract from left to right. So 66 minus 5 leaves me with 61 for my answer. For 20, again, go through my process. We're going to first see if we have any parentheses, and we do. So I'm going to note that. So in my parentheses, I have 3 plus 6. So I'm going to go ahead and find that, which will give us 9. Bring down the rest of my expression so that I know what I'm working with. Look at my new expression. and I want to move on to my next step, and my next step would be exponents, but I don't see any exponents in here, so we can skip that. Next would be multiply and divide from left to right. Going from the left, we have 27 divided by 9 gives us 3. Bring down the rest of my expression. Still staying with the same step of multiplying and dividing from left to right. My next step would be to multiply. Just 3 times 5, it's 15. Bring down the rest of my expression. Leaves us with 15 minus 12, which leads us to our last step, which would be add or subtract from left to right. So we're going to do our subtraction here, which is 15 minus 12, and that gives us 3. Now on to problem 21. We'll get our steps. I'm not seeing any parentheses, so we'll skip that step. Next step would be exponents, and I do see some exponents. We have 6 to the second power, which is just like 6 times 6. That'll give us 36. I'll bring down the rest of my expression. After exponents in our process, we have multiply or divide from left to right. We do have division, so I'm going to do that for my next step. 36 divided by 4 gives me 9. Bring down the remaining of my expression. I don't see any more multiplication or division, so I can move to my next step, which is add or subtract from left to right. So 26 plus 9 gives me 35 for my answer. Start with my first step of parentheses. I don't see any parentheses in my expression, so I can move on to the next step of exponents. I do see some exponents here, so we'll go ahead and do that. Remember, this is like saying 3 times 3 gives us 9. Carry down the rest of my expression. My next step would be multiply or divide from left to right. So I'm going to start on my left side, which gives me divide. So 22 divided by 2 is 11. Carry down the rest of my expression. We're left with 11 times 9, which leads us for our last step is to multiply. We don't have any adding or subtraction in here. So 11 times 9 gives me 99 for our answer. All right, and finally for 23, go through my process again. We start with parentheses, and I do see parentheses in here. And within our parentheses, we do have an exponent. So I want to solve that exponent first to make solving my whole parentheses a little bit easier. So I'm going to do my 5 squared first, and that's going to give me 25. I'm going to write down what I have in my parentheses still, which is still subtracting 6. Bring down the rest of my expression. I still want to finish my parentheses here before I can move on. So I have 25 minus 6 gives me 19. After parentheses and exponents, we move on to the next step of our Pemdas. It's multiply and divide from left and right. In our expression, we do have division, so we'll go ahead and do that. 12 divided by 4 gives us 3. Carry down the rest of my expression. Leaves me with our last step of adding and subtracting from left to right. 3 plus 19 gives us 22 for our answer. You don't have to worry about 24, 25, or 26. I'll go ahead and do 24 just so you can see all of the different steps. So again, we'll start with our parentheses, which is given here. 25 times 2 gives us 50. Bring down the rest of my expression. After parentheses, we have exponents, which we do have. So 4 squared is like saying 4 times 4. Will give us 16. After parentheses and exponents, we have multiply and divide from left to right. We do have division. So 96 divided by 16 will give us 6. And lastly, we have add and subtract from left to right. So we'll start on our left. 6 plus 50 gives us 56. 56 minus 15 gives us 41. And lastly, 41 minus 3 will give us 38 for our answer.